Welcome to 10-Minute Sales Training, practical sales training for everyday reps. This is short, focused coaching you can use immediately. Whether you're on the way to a meeting, in between calls, or building a team, let's get into it. In this episode, we're talking about the 4-part sales script, from the warm-up to the close. Now, most sales conversations don't fail at the close. They fail in the structure. Reps often think closing is the hard part of the conversation, but the truth is, the close is just the natural result of everything that came before it. If your conversation feels awkward at the end, it's usually because the earlier stages were not clear. So today I want to give you a simple framework you can use in almost any sales environment. It's the 4-part sales script. Part 1 is the warm-up, Part 2 the transition, Part 3 the presentation, and Part 4 the close. If you understand these 4 parts and don't skip steps, your conversations will feel smoother and more controlled. So let's break them down. Part 1 is the warm-up. Now, this is where most reps rush. They jump straight into product, but the warm-up does 3 critical things. 1, it builds trust. 2, it establishes professionalism. And 3, it sets expectations. At the minimum, your warm-up should answer 3 questions for the client. Who are you? Why are we meeting today? And what's going to happen today? So, for example, you could structure a warm-up like this. Hey, John, thanks for taking the time today. The goal of this meeting is to review your current setup, identify any gaps, and then I'll walk you through a few options that might make sense. At the end, we'll decide whether it's worth moving forward. So, that alone creates structure. You're giving them a roadmap. And when clients know where the conversation is going, they relax. If you skip this step, they feel uncertain, and that creates resistance. Now, the warm-up is also where you control the tone of the meeting. You need to be calm, confident, and direct. You don't need hype, you need clarity. All right, quick break, then we'll jump back into the rest of it. Now, part 2 is the transition, and this is the most overlooked step in sales. The transition is where you move from building rapport into the business, from conversation into evaluation. And without a transition, the presentation can feel abrupt. So the transition should explain things like, why my company? Why this product category? Why does this matter? And it can sound something like this. So John, before I show you a specific option, let me explain why this matters and how we approach it differently. See, now you've earned permission to move forward. And this is also where you can introduce reality, like pricing ranges and approval processes and limitations. So, for example, you could say, depending on coverage and underwriting, most clients in your situation are somewhere between X and Y monthly. By introducing those numbers early, you remove the shock later, because a lot of reps hide price until the very end. But if the price is going to matter, and it usually does, you need to address it early. The transition is designed to prepare the ground for the presentation. Now, part 3, the presentation. This is where a lot of reps overcomplicate things. They talk too long, they overload the client with information, and they try to impress the client instead of clarify things. So the rule here is simple. Identify a problem, provide a solution, and then tie it back to the client. So, for example, you could say, so you mentioned earlier that your biggest concern in coverage is you're off work for a few months. This option addresses that directly by ... So keep it tied to what they say, not what you want to say. And another key thing here is pacing. Don't fire all of your bullets all at once. Pause. Ask for small confirming questions. Does that make sense? Would that be important to you? Is that something you'd want in place? Those are all tie-down questions. They build small agreements that lead to larger ones. And remember, confusion kills deals. Clarity is what helps close them. If you talk for 20 straight minutes without engagement, you've lost control. The presentation should feel like a guided conversation, not a lecture. And that brings us to part 4, the close. Now, if you've done the first 3 steps properly, the close should feel natural. It should not feel like a surprise. It should feel like the next logical step. So here's one important principle. Don't close on a yes or no question. So instead of asking, so do you want to move forward? Try something like an option close. Between these two options, which feels like a better fit? Option A or option B? This keeps the decision active. You're not asking whether they want it, you're asking how they want it structured. And if they hesitate, well, that's information, not rejection. Now you can clarify. Ask secondary questions. Address their concerns. But if the structure was solid, most resistance is going to be reduced. All right, now here's the bigger lesson. Most awkward sales conversations aren't really about personality. They're about structure. When you skip the warm-up, you don't have the trust built. When you skip the transition, you shock them with the product. And when you overload the presentation, you create confusion. And if you close without that groundwork, then it feels pushy. Having a solid structure creates confidence, and confidence creates that credibility. So, here's your assignment. Take your current sales script and break it into 4 parts. The warm-up, the transition, the presentation, the close. Write 1 sentence for each section that clearly defines its purpose. Then practice delivering them smoothly. Because sales isn't magic. It's a structured conversation. Master the structure, and the rest gets easier. All right, that's it. If this episode was helpful, send it to someone on your team. And if you're leading a sales team, feel free to use it in your next training session. If you'd like to support the show, you can find that link in the show notes. Sales is simple, but it's not easy. The more intentional you are, the better you get. I'll see you in the next one.